Lenses are a photographer's vice. I know what I'm about to say is going to be unpopular, so feel free to dislike and unsub, but what I truly believe is this. There is a more minimal, cost-effective, and more focused approach to bulky lens collections. Let's begin. First, let's get some stuff out of the way. If you're an established photographer who is already deeply invested in a lens collection, and you enjoy having a lens for every scenario, this video isn't for you. This is specifically designed for creatives who are looking to lighten their load, be smarter with their gear purchases, or are looking to get started with the fewest number of purchases possible. With that in mind, here's the main point. Fewer lenses can actually boost creativity. I know, it sounds super counterintuitive, but I found that when I force myself to make do with fewer lenses, I've been able to produce artwork, which is just born of creativity. The traditional approach is to have a lens for each circumstance, at least ideally. A macro 100mm lens, a portrait 70mm lens, a set of fast prime lenses, a wide-angle lens, a fisheye lens, and of course that all-powerful super telephoto. This leads to camera bags filling up with expensive lenses, which don't necessarily see a lot of frequent use. How do I know this to be true? Because I did it. While my collection wasn't anything too crazy, I had built a 5-lens collection over the span of 4 years, including a Carl Zeiss planar 50, an 8mm fisheye lens, and a 300mm super telephoto. In retrospect, about 90% of the pictures I took were with the Zeiss planar lens. So that begs the question, how did I justify giving space in my daily carry bag to the other 4 lenses, which very infrequently saw use? Well, because I was always worried about the other 10% of photos. So I had to keep all of the wide angles and telephoto lenses within reach. When I cashed out of the Nikon DSLR and took the plunge into the far more advanced Sony mirrorless line, I initially was looking at dropping in about an additional $2,000 just to get my focal lengths and speeds back on the Sony E-mount system. I knew there was a better way. So I sat down and I thought about what I really needed out of a lens collection. And what I realized was this. I wanted 3 simple things. I wanted a wide-angle lens at about 20mm. I wanted a super fast 50mm prime lens at about f1.8. And I wanted at least some telephoto ability at about 100mm. With these focal points, I was pretty certain that I could capture about 98% of what I was used to, and with only 3 lenses. So with these principles in mind, I began looking for lenses which could fulfill these needs while still not breaking the bank. Instead of buying 3 lenses, I was actually able to do it in just 2. These are the 2 lenses I decided on getting. A Sony kit lens and a $100 no-name prime lens. Gasp, I know. The Sony 18 to 135mm kit lens covers all of the basics, from wide angle to a pretty decent telephoto. While these lenses aren't the fastest out there, it was cost effective and it hits most of the focal lengths that I needed. Obviously, I'm missing out on extreme edges of the spectrum, the 8mm and the 300mm options, but you know, I haven't really missed it. The A6600's 24 megapixels are sharp enough to allow a significant amount of cropping in post, so even though I only had a 135mm lens, it feels a lot more like a 200mm lens. The prime lens is something that I knew I was going to be using about 90% of the time. In fact, it's what we're using right now. So I wanted to make sure that it would have extreme bokeh and beautiful depth of field. Obviously, a modern Zeiss planar would have been out of the question, as those are running at about $4,000 right now. So I started doing my research on fast lenses that were also affordable. And somehow a review of this $109 lens came across my YouTube recommendations, and boy, am I glad it did. While the bokeh on this lens is not as dreamy as more expensive options, in my opinion, it's just as buttery and smooth. I love the fact that I have just 2 rather compact lenses to go along with my compact mirrorless. It feels like this setup is the best mix of a minimal daily carry and being budget friendly, all while allowing me to enjoy the most functionality. I'd highly recommend this exact setup to anyone who's looking to get started with Sony, and I would also recommend that those who are already established in their lens collections to take a second look at which lenses you're using on a regular basis and see which ones can actually be eliminated. With this lens combination, I feel confident in my ability to capture whatever I can imagine in a way that's both minimalistic and artistic. If you have any questions or additional thoughts, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. I'll be down there, so let's start a conversation. I've been Nick with Nick Picks, and I'll see you in the next one.